Hi, welcome to another typology interview. We have here Jin and Charles. How's it going, guys?
All right, thank you.
Yeah, nice. So let's just jump in quick to the map to see what type we are. You guys are both on the same coin. We have an ISFP, which is Charles, and we have an INTJ, which is Jin. And Charles isn't actually completely officially typed, so you might even be FINI. We'll maybe get a bit closer during this thing, during what's going on. Jin is double masculine, so your masculine is going to be in play. Charles might be double masculine, or he might be MF, so his double masculine might be consume. And we have Jin. Jin said he was blast, play, sleep, and Charles we know is sleep, consume, or consume, sleep, and probably play, but it could be blast his third animal. So let's just dive in and start talking about functions. So maybe you guys are like on the opposite end of the map here. So you don't really have the same savior functions. Your savior functions are completely opposite. So maybe, I guess the closest would be maybe NI. So maybe we can start with NI. Jin, it's your first savior, your dominant function. Yeah. So like, tell us a little bit about how you see your NI expressing itself. I think you froze there.
Oh, okay. So NI is really related to the human need of organizing. I just find that I don't really get out of my house other than doing the same thing, repetitive things like going to the same grocery store, stuff like that. It's the last stuff. It's the stuff that I do over and over again. So that's the human need sort of relates to that. That's how I really find it playing out in a more functional way. I don't like go to new places, new things very often unless I'm taking a friend with me, or sometimes I force myself to do something new, and it can become quite when I do it, it's like I'm super proud and have to tell everyone. But that's other than that, the NI is what I've really noticed is just the human need of organizing. It plays out in a way that you end up thinking about your own future, but it's mostly related to the fact that you don't really do anything spontaneously. From what I've noticed, it's just so organized, so structured. It doesn't that's the best way I can think of it.
And that's how it expresses itself in you, or you're just explaining it generally?
Yeah, that's how I see itself. The most obvious way is I'm super controlling, control freak.
Okay.
That's the best way of explaining NI. It really is related to that.
I guess he cut out again.
Yeah, must be an internet service thing.
Yeah.
Some people are probably watching and listening. These, for example, the NEs drive me nuts. They just come out with these patterns and patterns, and I just sort of want to work on one pattern itself, one concept. And when I hammer on that concept at one point, I hear like an NE person just say, yeah, but it's not just that, it's also this other thing as well. And we sort of just, go back and forth. It's quite funny.
Do you find that a lot of things are the same? Like a lot of concepts apply to many different aspects, many different places in life?
Yeah, it's just a short NI is just really like it's just a shortcut machine as much as you can think of it. You know how all humans are trying to find the easiest path to something, shortcut way. The NI really just manifests that in its basic simplistic form. Like if something's not needed, just get rid of it. It's just applying one pattern somewhere to somewhere else. I'm really finding.
Do you relate to any of that, Charles?
I really experience NI in a little different way. Because to me, it's more about understanding the underlying theme behind everything, whether it could be a story I'm listening to or music I'm listening to. NI also is about my, trying to figure out my personal future, knowing what I really want, and also it's like a dream world, man. I really don't like reality, so I find that just kind of zoning out and daydreaming and going into that imaginative world or listening to something that triggers that, to me, that's what NI is, or me just trying to figure out what's coming next, or just kind of knowing things without being able to explain the why I know it, or vibes I get off of people, even where I can read people. I don't know. To me, it feels more like this mystical thing. And I I don't know how to explain it really, but I'm told that my NI is strong from people that have, understand cognitive function and that know me on a personal level, which, it's third slot though. That's the weird part. But NI to me really has a lot to do with knowing one's own personal future or trying to think of what your personal future might be. Like I'm in college, so I obviously will think, well, after so many years, I have to get transferred to a university. So I'll think about where I'm going to live, you know, how much money I might make, what type of job I'll have. I think about that kind of stuff, but it's just kind of a mental escape from everything that stresses me out. I like going into I guess you can say I use NI to kind of put things together, like I'm listening to a song or listening to a story, and then all of a sudden, not immediately, but it gradually comes. I'll see the themes behind everything. It likes to connect the dots, not like the way NE would, but like it sees like one converging point. But it doesn't happen all of a sudden because NI really, you can't wield NI. You can wield NE, but you can't wield NI. NI just kind of works on a subconscious level. But like I get a lot of insights and a lot of aha moments, and I find the deeper meaning behind it.
Do you find that you need to collect a lot of SE before you can connect that dot and find that theme?
Not always. It depends on what it is.
Mm-hmm. Do you relate to that at all, Jen?
It's really never.
Yeah, especially when he says planning out your own future. Like I find that happens. A lot. It's because you're just working on one thing. It's one concept, and the concept being generally your life. So that one concept sort of plays out, and you sort of disrespect like new things. So you're only working on where you see your life going, and then it sort of plays out into the future longer than perhaps someone who has SI savior would. So
do you have a general theme behind your life, like a general idea of who you are? Do you think that's also NI plays out there, Jen?
I think it's more of not just my own, not so much tying to my identity, but it's more of well, this is where my life is looking like it's going to head if I continue on this path, and whether I want that or not is something related to a decision, just one of the deciders. But it's like you sort of know how your life is going to play out in the next 5 to 10 years based on the last 2 years. Like small, in statistics, they call it extrapolation. You have a small amount of data points and you extrapolate really far out.
Yeah.
And you find that like from the last year, what the next 5 to 10 years are going to be like generally if you stay in this one place, if you stay on this one path. Like,
so that sounds also like interfacing with TE a little bit too, what you're talking about, the extrapolation.
Yeah, I don't know about TE. TE extrapolation is an interesting thought. It could work.
No, I mean like your TE is taking is doing that extrapolation with the NI. It sounds like a combination of the two.
Oh, right. Yeah, being my savior, it would do. Yeah. TE is basically making the decision of if this NI pattern is the one that I would want to take on. Right.
Okay. Maybe let's talk about FI then a little bit, because that should be the next one that you guys both have in common, a little more than the other two. So maybe Charles, talk a little bit about your FI, what you've discovered about it since the last time we talked. Or
it's a hard function to explain, honestly, man.
Yeah.
You picked the wrong ones here, NF, NT. You're not going to explain them.
It's very hard to explain them, but FI is just a deep well of emotions. It's knowing oneself. It's being overly self-absorbed. You can be happy and sad all at the same time and don't even know why you're happy and sad at that moment. You can literally feel a wide range of emotions, and I don't know how to explain it other than like, it's emotional highs, emotional lows. You're happy, you're sad, you're touched by things, your values, ultra self-focused, almost to the point of just being very self-absorbed, to the point that you got to remind yourself that other people exist as well.
Hmm.
It's hard to explain, man, but FI is just a really powerful function, and it's so nuanced that words can't completely describe it in the way it deserves to be described. But that's
I
some
get
of the
that.
aspects, sure.
Do you find that you could go against your own values if you wanted to at some point, or?
Not really. It's hard. Um, I pretty much, have a strong value system that I pretty much just naturally live out. I'm very true to myself. It's hard not to be true to myself.
And what
And I
about changing your values or modifying? Do you think your values have always been the same, or they modify slowly over time, or easily, quickly?
some might modify if I decide that a certain approach wasn't the right approach, but for the most part, they're pretty much the same.
Right.
And I guess another sign of strong FI is we don't really like groupthink, although TE inferior works in two ways. It can either be susceptible to groupthink or it can really hate groupthink.
Right.
And I don't like a lot of groupthink. I don't like when people are like, well, this is just how I see it, or this is how the group sees it. It's like, well, I think people need to think for themselves and make up their own
Hmm.
mind. Just
Um,
because someone tells you something doesn't mean you got to buy into it. You got to decide how you feel on your own and maybe do some research and make sure that, whatever it is, don't be so easily swayed into what somebody's saying. You need to.
right. What about like the values of other people around you and stuff? They influence you, or is it just your own values trump everything what you find is valuable?
I mean, it just depends on who I'm around. I don't know. Most of the people I'm around, we have similar values. If you have values that I don't agree with, I might find you flat out offensive. Like, let's say somebody values being superficial over authenticity. Well, that's going to piss me off. I might not say anything, but in my head, I'm silently judging that person. Let's say somebody focuses so much on like material wealth and money, and then they try to like lecture you about all that same stuff. I'm not going to listen to that kind of conversation. Like, I don't care about material wealth. I don't care about materialism in general. I care about if we're good people or not. I care about treating people as they deserve to be treated. I don't care about like stupid crap, because people out there will judge you. They'll judge you on how you look. They'll judge you on how much money you make. They'll judge you on you know stupid things that don't even matter. I've always been a firm believer of just go out there and be a good person and mind your own business kind of deal.
Right.
Don't worry about how much money somebody's making and don't lecture them on, that's a big value of mine, is
Hmm.
respecting people's personal privacy or whatever.
Do you identify with that at all, Jin?
Yeah, I mean, the first part where you said if I can't explain it because it's something that you like, it's deep within you, it's so true. Just thinking about like every decision that you make, it comes from the fact that you just like it. I just like, I can't explain why I like it. I just like it. It's not logic driven at all. And I would have no idea why I wanted to do something, but I felt like I wanted to do it. And that's something which you can't explain. You just feel, you just know. I think that's what I've learned from my FI. I remember you saying, like, you asked, is it movable? Could you change it? I think for me, yes and no, because yes, it's feminine and it moves depending on if I can see a different TE idea, then I've locked my FI onto something different, perhaps, and then perhaps it would change if the T is more dominant than the FI. So perhaps it's more movable than what Charles is. But I still agree with the fact that, well, once I find something, I like it. I can't explain why I liked it. It's just something, perhaps a life event happened. All these sequence of events happen that just so happens to align that my FI made me like personality typing instead of liking something else like fishing or something else. Some sequence of events happened that made me like this as opposed to liking something else. And that like is, I can't explain how, I can't explain why that desire is there. but it's not in something else. It's, you know, it could be for any number of reasons, T reasons.
And what about your values and things like that? Are you aware of your own personal values? Do you feel like you can go against the crowd if your values are different?
I know what my values are, and I could end up like projecting them onto others more so with my T, especially if they're. That's what I find. I end up I know what values are, but they could be subject to change. But when I'm not so comfortable in my own values as much as Charles is. So he just says he doesn't care about other people, what they do and stuff. I'm always searching for something better, if you see what I mean. Something like, is this value justified? Is it going to work? Is it going to work for what I see? Does it work with, you know, what my NI sees, which controls my life? Is that what my NI is that value? Is that consistent with where my NI pattern of my life is taking me? These values which I hold. So I do have it, but it's just a servant compared to, you know, the T and the NI for me. Right. I do admire it.
Charles doesn't care about the values of other people. He was more saying that just don't force other people to be a certain way. That's
exactly it. Yeah. Respect people's individuality. Respect that people are. Unless you're hurting somebody, like if you're a cokehead, obviously get on to that person for being a coke or meth head. But I've always had the thing of mind your own business kind of thing. Like I really don't care what the other people around me are doing in the general sense, because I trust that they're smart enough to make their own decisions.
Right. I feel like that's also just an IP thing too, because I think that's the same for me as a lead TI.
Oh yeah. EJs are the ones that love to tell people like how to live their lives or how to manage money, or it's a long story. I'm not saying they're all like that. They mean well, but I've seen that pattern. Is the one that wants to really, they put their business into other people's, they put their nose in other people's business, but they can't help it because they're leading with extroverted judging, so they're just naturally focused
on others.
They're more focused on the world outside of self. So we're self-absorbed, but they're too you-absorbed. You know, I mean, they can't help it. That's just where their dominant function takes them. You know, they're focused outside of self, and we're focused too much on ourselves to where we almost seem narcissistic.
Yeah. Do you identify with what Jin was saying a little bit about how he was talking about his values, about how like he needs reason, like he doesn't need reasons, but he wants like to align his values with his NI trajectory in life?
I don't know, man. I just believe what I believe, and I value what I value. A lot of it comes just from the things I've gone through. You know, I've had almost the same values since I was a kid. I mean, I became a Christian when I was 12. So that only added to what my values were, but I've just been me, you know, my whole life.
Cool.
You know, I don't know how to explain it. I've had the same values. My biggest value is love your neighbor as yourself and treat people as you want to be treated. That's my biggest value. And
so you guys are, the NF together comes into sleep, and I've noticed that Jin, you're actually really good at typing people. Like you have your typing channel going and with the class and stuff. And I've noticed that Charles also, he picks up on type really naturally, really well. I'm wondering if it has something to do with your sleep that you're able to do that. Maybe Jin.
Yeah, NF is known as the profile. It's more of the one that's good for picking up people's people's vibe and knowing sort of what type they are, but without explaining it. It's that whole NF realm, which is really useful for typing itself. Being my third animal, so it's like my hobby function and introverted sleep. Yeah, I do like to use it, and I do find it, I want to get better at it as well. It's the NF stuff is very good for the personality typing people, but it's not something, you know, I'm not perfect and really good at typing people. It's just that it's something I'm constantly working on improving, but you can't just do the NF. You have to be able to also do all the rest of them as well, just to be able to type people as well. But I think, someone who's maybe, an INFJ and IFE might have an easier time typing people than some other people type, just from the vibe. Maybe they just won't have the ST clarity of knowing what type
Do
they
you use
are in
that?
the objective
Do you
personality
use that
system.
sleep vibe to type people when you're doing it?
I don't know how it relates to sleep. I'd have to think about that. Yeah, because you sort of listen to someone and you sort of go over the same information because you personally identify with what they're going through. So I guess it would come out, especially when you're typing someone over the course of days. When I type people, I don't do it in 1 or 2 days. I do it I start off on like Wednesday or Thursday, listen to a couple of audios and my journey into work. Then after that, I absorb their information. I might go over a couple of things that they've said, and that NF may actually help play out from there. I don't know if it's solely based on that, but I think that's how the NF plays out in my typing.
What about you, Charles? Do you find it helps?
I'm not sure if it's the sleep thing or what. I have a long process. Sometimes I can get you right off of your 5, and other times it's longer. I try to go by the interaction styles, like if somebody's direct or informative or more initiating or responding, which means introvert or extrovert. Then I listen to like their tone of voice, their speech patterns. I listen to what they talk about. I even look at the body language if I have the availability to do so. I mean, it's a long process, but sometimes I can type somebody pretty closely off of their vibe and, just, I don't know how to explain it, but sometimes I can get you off of your vibe, and other times I need to go off of a little more. It just really depends. Like, I use a slightly different terminology from y'all, but it still gets me to the results,
Right.
like NI child is what they call tertiary NI. Well, IPs really, a lot of the times we know what we want, whether it's ISTP or ISFP. We will focus. We want something almost in a childlike manner. We want this. We want this. We want this. We know what we want, and it's almost childlike in what we want. Now, this where it gets a little honky. I don't know if I believe this, but they say NI child is liquid luck, which honestly, I give the glory to God, but I have had a lot of liquid luck in my life. I've been in situations where bad things should have happened and it didn't. I've been in situations where my car should have hit the ramp, but it didn't. There was a bad storm and I got blown into the next lane, and there was no other cars in that lane. And I've had so many close calls in my life, and nothing bad has actually happened, but I've had some scary moments that could have potentially killed me.
Right.
But
yeah, I wonder how anecdotal that is too, but
yeah, I know. I heard that, and I'm like, I don't know if I call it liquid luck. I just, as a Christian, I would say that God's watching me. But the biggest thing about tertiary NI is just it's a big emphasis on knowing what you want, almost in a childlike manner. Like, this is what I feel. This is what I want. This is, But how I type people, it's mainly through just listening to them talk about stuff, and then just paying attention to their body language and picking up on their cognitive access.
Do you feel like it's easier to type someone if you've met that type several times before? Like, does that come into play?
Sometimes, but a lot of times it's just I know what to look for. But I still struggle a little bit with the NESI users. I'm getting better at that, but in such a blind spot that I really have to listen to the conversation. Because when I type people, I listen to several things, like, are they concrete, which means they're more of a sensor? Are they abstract, which means more intuitive? Are they pragmatic? What that means is you prefer to do things on your own. Are they affiliative? Affiliative talks about people all the time. Or they need the team. Well, affiliative is teamwork makes the dream work, basically. The pragmatic is, no, I'm going to do it myself. And people like you and I, you're ISTP, I'm ISFP. SPs in general are considered pragmatics, which means we prefer to kind of do things on our own. But like an INFP might actually value a team that's serving them in a sense. They'll value more of the team because NFs in general are what you call affiliative, which would make sense because they're definitely very much about people. The INFPs, INFJs, ENFJs, etc. So I don't know. That's kind of how I type it, but that's a long description.
Yeah. Cool. So let's talk about the next savior in the bundle, TE. Jin, do you want to tell us a bit how your TE is expressed? No?
So, man, I got masculine TE, which is very pushy as well amongst people. One like small anecdote I've noticed when looking for was when someone comes up with an idea or something, they say something, I say, that could work, this could work, that could work. You know, it could be anything stupid, like you could say we could dig a hole with toothbrushes. And I wouldn't be like, oh, that's stupid. Like, what I'd be like, how would you do that? You would get like toothbrushes. You have to be multiple people over multiple days. What kind of time frame would it be from, okay, let's dig a hole with toothbrushes? You know, that anything stupid thing like that. It's not like I dismiss it straight away. It's like I take the time to think about it, but then I might move on to something else. You know, that kind of thing is the most obvious way I can think about it.
So you'll entertain any idea for a little bit?
Yeah. I'm thinking, how would you do that? How would you do that? And then using that, you know, that way they saw it, that concept or that thing.
Are you looking if it would work, or how would it work, or?
Yeah, how it would work. Obviously, I'll know that its applicability in reality would be very minimal, but it's like, okay, this would work like this. How does it compare to something else that would work like this? Like you would dig a hole with a spade, for example. I mean, you would have a lot less manpower, but you know, how would you get a spade? You know, all these are different things. Stuff like that. You're not dismissing. You're just comparing that idea to digging a hole to a toothbrush compared to digging a hole with something else.
And I just want to ask again about truth. So, do you feel like if it works, it's true, or can it be true and not work?
No, the whole thing, TT is like almost anything can work. It's just not as viable compared to something else.
Right.
So it's like T is like almost anything would work, but it's like there's like levels of which one would work better than the other. Which is, I guess, it's like the whole EJ extroverted side of thing, right? So like digging the hole with a shovel is work better than digging the hole with a toothbrush.
Right.
But you know, digging a hole with a toothbrush could work.
Right. And so all that would be true. Like, how does truth fit into your TE?
You just rank order them, really. Just place one above the other.
So one is more true than the other?
Yeah, one's more applicable.
More applicable.
Actually, I think no, they're both true. Just that one's more applicable.
Right. And if you were to try to dig a hole with blowing on something and it just doesn't work, would that be false?
Well, it depends what you blow with. Like if you're blowing with your mouth,
right?
Then yeah. But if you get like a leaf blower, or you get like a high pressure blower, then it's a different thing, right? Okay. But it's still blowing. So okay. Just extroverted spectrum, right? So it's not like blowing won't work. Right. It could work, but you have to get a different tool to make it work.
Do you see your TE similar, Charles?
It's hard to explain. I see my TE as it's not very healthy. I like TE in other people, though. I appreciate it because I suck so bad at it. My TE is very critical of stupidity. Like if you're an idiot driver and you don't follow the rules on the road, I just think you're stupid. So it's kind of like a TE grip thing. It's not very healthy TE. It's very angry TE. It's very, it's weird because it's TE inferior, but I'm hypersensitive to stupidity. Like I hate stupidity. Like it drives me nuts when people just don't use their common sense. But in general, I think having a lower TE manifests in passive-aggressive behavior. We don't really like to explain things, or maybe I could over-explain something out of nervousness, but I really don't like confrontation or conflicts or anything. Not the most organized person in the world, but because of that, I'm a minimalist. I keep very few things in my room, which makes it easier to maintain. I don't know, and being that I suck so bad at TE, like when it comes to like, what's wrong with my car? How do I fix this? Or blah, blah, blah. I'll call somebody who has more knowledge than me because I literally I don't know how to do it. Like I heard one theory, and I kind of agree with it, that if your inferior function is sometimes you need somebody else to actually do it for you because you just don't know how to do it. Like I'm not very good at like looking up resources when it comes to like problem solving. I mean, I've gotten better because I use Google, but like I'll call Chris if I'm like, dude, my car sounds like this. what does that mean? I don't know how to fix this. What does that sound mean? Because like I'm not very good at like researching stuff, and if I know somebody's got a lot more knowledge on something than I do, you know, like something not working, I would rather just have somebody tell me why it doesn't work, because I just don't know what to do.
Will you trust them, like, or will you argue with them, or?
If it's a personal thing, then I don't involve any TE. But if it's like, hey, my car is making this weird sound, can you help me figure out what's going on? Because I don't want it to die on me, and then I'll, it's not just anybody, but like Chris, for example, he knows cars. He's
But
kind
like,
of a
say he says something that doesn't seem to be right to you. Would you argue with him, or you just let him do it and trust him?
It depends. Being that I literally have no knowledge on vehicles, I don't know, because like I'm definitely not a car guy.
Right. What about
I'm
other
a,
contradictions? Just contradictions in general. Are those okay for you to deal with? You want to jump on them, or?
I hate when people are wrong, actually. When people have wrong information or if they're doing something wrong, there's a strong part of me that wants to be like, but no, you're wrong, but I'm not good at doing that because the TE is superior. But when people are wrong, I have this tendency to just want to correct them and be like, actually, that's not correct. You're totally wrong on your facts.
Right.
But it doesn't always happen. I want to, uh, you know, but basically TE just comes out in a stressful way. It's basically I get angry easy. Not all the time, but when I'm in that mode, I get angry easy and I get frustrating and I'm very sharp and biting, and that's not a side of me that I like.
Right.
But I don't.
Yeah. I want to know if Jin is similar in any of those ways, correcting people when they're wrong, or getting someone who's more knowledgeable about something to help you, or.
Yeah, if I'd say if something doesn't work and someone's doing something wrong and there's another better way, I would say, yeah, there's a better way you could do it. By the way, you could dig the hole with a shovel, right? Just hammering on that analogy again. Dig the hole with a shovel instead. If they continue with a toothbrush, I'm like, well, you're stupid. You should use something else, right?
Are you cool? Are you critical over what works? Because part of being an INTJ, according to the theory I follow, and I think it does ring true, you would have TI as your critic function, means you'll criticize stupidity very, very highly.
I think that's true. I think TE just abuses TI. People who have like ideas, if they're like locked into that idea, it's like, no, there's something else you do. I think you're right there. You can sometimes take the mick out of TI people if I think that TI is a bit off. You know what I mean?
Do you like to verify? Like if somebody's like, you should try this, is there a part of you that wants to verify and be like, are you sure that works? Because that sounds kind of dumb. Does that go through your head? Like, do you want to verify that it works?
Yeah, I ask lots of questions about their idea. I just keep asking them like, what's that going to do? What's this going to do? And you're exactly right. I do find that happens a lot. It's very interesting.
Do you find TI people would get offended when you do that, or?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's the same with me when like I get abused with NE users when like ENFPs or ENTPs come to me and just throw out all these concepts and I'm just like hammering on one. I think they secretly laugh at me and like I kind of like getting annoyed. Okay, that's enough, right? And I'm sort of secretly just like getting pounded with all this stuff. Like the same thing probably happens with TI users with my TE. Just getting pounding them with all this different ideas and they're like, oh, I need to find out one idea.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny.
You'll be NE ignoring technically.
Ignoring the NE.
Well, by your cognitive stack, that's your fifth function, extroverted intuition.
Right.
That would. So
I'll just be ignoring it.
Yeah, because you'll want a singular focus. I'm the same way. I want a singular focus. I don't like all these random ideas. Even though ideas can be cool, I'd like something to go to a converging point.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's something to say for that. I think it's also important not to, like, I think NI and NE is like the observation. So it's very much seeing how is observing something, seeing something when it happens, whereas TE is still just this deciding. So it's like you decide on what action you take. Yeah, yeah. No, I'm sorry. I'm just theorizing the difference between NE
Yeah.
and TE.
Yeah, so I was going to ask about theorizing and brainstorming and things. Do you find that you guys are good at brainstorming and theorizing, or something you like to stay away from, or?
I don't like it. I think that's more of an NE thing, the brainstorming, theorizing, and then I think the applicability is like when you do it, when you apply something, when you make the decision to do something, then the TE comes into its own, where you can look out and see lots of different ideas which could apply, to this one thing. The thing that needs to be done, though, the one thing that needs to be done needs to come out from all these NE ideas, So then you sort of say, okay, now we know what needs to be done. Go away, ENTPs, ENFPs. We don't need any more NE. We can actually start applying stuff with the NI, has lock it down, and then then start looking at the ideas for it. So in that regard, I think it works quite well.
Right. What about you, Charles? Do you like to brainstorm at all, or?
I don't know. I like if I'm listening to something, I like understanding the theme behind it, or I like understanding the concept, like whether it's a physical one or just understanding MBTI so I can understand myself better. But coming up with random theories all the time, no. Maybe listening to the Lord of the Rings audiobook and picking up on the underlining theme and how it relates to, like, I don't know, like good versus evil or whatever. But do I brainstorm? Not a whole lot. Unless the band is trying to come up with new business ideas, then you kind of have to brainstorm in a situation like that. That's just how it is. But
okay, so let's touch on sorry to cut you off there, man.
Oh, it's cool.
So let's touch on SE quick before we sign off. Maybe Charles, tell me a little bit about your SE first, because it's closer to you in your stack.
I think it's just my appreciation of like aesthetic beauty. Like I'm very drawn to that. Specifically, like, I don't know, like I notice if a girl's got really long flowing hair, that just mesmerizes me. Or, I notice people's skin tone, like the fairness of, like, let's say Liv Tyler from Lord of the Rings. I notice how pale she is, and I notice how long her hair is. I'm drawn to that. Or I'm drawn to nature. I love just kind of going to the park and staring at the water and looking at the trees and stuff like that. Or I love just kind of driving around in the open roads, just kind of driving to nowhere, but just kind of just being out. I don't know how to explain it, but I like just being out in the middle of nowhere. Mm-hmm. Or like my dream house, I would love to actually just live on a lake, like secluded out in the woods around nothing, just to be in the peace, so to speak.
Do you find yourself aware of the moment of what's going on around you at all times as well, or?
Not 100%, because I drift into my head a lot.
Right.
I mean, if I'm going in, I can pick up on what's going on.
Like the feelings in your extremities, the temperature, like, does all that stuff really?
Kind of. On and off, because I daydream a lot. Mm-hmm. I do notice that I notice some really weird, every now and then when I'm really in SE mode, I notice really weird nuances to things, and I'm like, man, I feel creepy right now. But I'm not being creepy. I just, when you're that observant, you pick up on a lot of weird stuff.
Right.
You probably know what I'm talking about,
Do you also sometimes have this NI idea or concept, and then something from the sensory will come and contradict it or support it? Does that happen as well?
Sometimes, but I'm bad about going with the NI over the SE, because, like, I don't know, I guess we get in denial, or we might not like the reality we're seeing, so we go with more of our intuitive notion. But mm-hmm. I don't know. Does any of that make sense to you? You're on the same perceiving axis as I am.
Yeah. Maybe I'll talk about it quick after Jin just lets us know how he feels about it.
All right.
Like, do you resonate with the long flowing hair and the water patterns and stuff like that?
I mean, yeah, I see all that stuff, but it's like I don't think of it anything. I just sort of disrespect it. It's just like,
It doesn't
yeah,
do anything for you?
she does have pale skin, she does have long flowing hair, but it's like I'm just like, okay, like it doesn't do so much for me, if you know what I mean. It's like I just want to disrespect it, but then when I do get the ESC, it becomes like this weird peacocking state, right? Like I talking about parks and stuff. I was in a park recently, and I just like taking lots of photos with it. And now I've got like a new smartphone, right? So I want to take better photos with it. And recently, I just figured out a way that you can get better photos with it. You can download the Google phone has the best camera, so you can download the Google camera app on your phone and take better photos with that. So I'm gonna start doing all this SE stuff, going into nature, taking pictures with this with this Google better camera phone, Google camera phone. So that's one way I can sort of like peacock it, right, and like get weird. I was really excited when I did that as well. When I did it like half an hour ago, I got the new Google phone app, and I just took a couple of selfies, and it actually does actually come out quite well. Just me peacocking my SC, right? So yeah, you can do that. And but the thing is, when I tried to find out, I was like, oh, that you can take that. When I found out how to do it, like I had to go and do the research, like how do you install the Google phone app? That was a bit of a hassle. I was like really flicking out and researching. I just sort of did. I just wanted to not do the research and just wanted to have the app on my phone straight away. You know what I mean? I didn't want to have to go through all that necessary, download the file, put it in my phone and computer, and transfer that kind of stuff.
And what if something comes and contradicts an NI pattern you have from the SE?
Right. Yeah. So then I have feminine and I know what you mean. I have feminine and I. So if I see some other sensory that goes along with it, I contradicts it. It's like the NI is subservient to the SE in a regard. Because like the SE is true, the fact is true. So I have to weave my NI pattern around it. So okay, or it has to be incorporated into it. And but gathering the SE, finding that SE stuff is like when it's like really awkward. But like when it contradicts, like it doesn't contradict the NI. It's just like the NI flows around the provable facts. If you see what I mean? It's like, okay, my NI pattern. This is where my life is going to go in 5 years' time because of these 2-year thing. This thing that happened in the last year. But if something completely different happens, I found out. Well, like all of a sudden, you know, like a job I'm doing is not exactly what I thought it was going to be because I've got like a different colleague or something like that, for example. Then either the NI pattern would change based on, you know, the different colleague, or that's a provable fact.
Does it feel like those contradictions are more like exceptions and the NI is still correct, or that the NI actually has to change and it's not an actual exception, it's like the rule?
No, the NI is. I think the NI is normally correct. It's because it's me disrespecting the sensory, right? Because I disrespect the sensory, and that NI is still kind of correct. Yeah, it generally still would feed the NI pattern, but you just take the NI pattern as true. I mean, it just sort of feeds it, but then it just, I don't know how to describe it. I'm not the best at describing NI because it's, you know, right at my top. I think I described TE a lot better.
Do you have something else to add on to that, Charles, at all? Or
I don't know, honestly. I would agree with him, though. Always go with your dominant function. And I saw this in an interview Kendrick did with Dr. Mike. I'm actually in Dr. Mike's group on Facebook because we thought I was an NF at one point in time, but I turned out to be an SP. I agree. Follow your dominant function. I mean, no, we're not God or whatever, so we're not perfect. But your dominant function is your strongest thing. It's there for a reason. So, like how he says his NI is correct, but he can't explain it. It's a lot with my FI. I just know what feels right, you know, and can't always explain it, you know.
Right. So I would like to interject and say that, like, sometimes you got to learn how to use your inferior function. And you got to learn how to maybe sometimes dial back that dominant function, because that's like for the first 30, 40 years of your life, that dominant function is going to be what you need. But after that, you're going to hit some kind of plateau by just using your dominant functions, and really getting to that next level is going to be using that inferior function, I think.
I'm kind of in the middle on that. I kind of agree, but I'm not 100% sure because I've also heard somebody say your inferior function is inferior forever, and
Right.
it it won't get any stronger because that's just how it is. Like, but then again, I don't know. I see some people talk about aspiring to it. I'm kind of in the middle on that. I'm still trying to figure that one out.
Right.
Because I do actually like TE, but I suck at it. But I do like in the band setting, I try to be more ENTJ. Like I like having the long term goals, getting things done and stuff, and being directed in charge. I guess is the best way to think of it. But then again, um, your inferior function, I don't know if it can grow, but you can learn how to work around it so it doesn't trip you up so much. But I think it has the strength that it's supposed to have, unfortunately. But you can do a lot of stuff to compensate for it. I think you can learn tricks and trades, and you can, open your mind to doing things. But I think your inferior function is always going to be inferior. But I don't know yet. That's still a new school of thought that I'm still exploring.
When you guys talk to each other, or not to each other, but when you guys are talking, do you feel like you're seeing each other? Do you feel like you have the same functions? Does it feel like you're speaking sort of the same language?
We're definitely Gamma Quadra. I see SENI in his glare. I know that's very abstract and hard to understand, but I know what SE or NISE type glare looks like, so to speak. How to explain that concretely, I can't tell you, but I know what I'm talking about. When I look at people, I can see their perceiving axis in their eyes. And being an INTJ, he's going to have more of a straight stare. And the eyes aren't going to move much, but you and I have SE, so our eyes will move a lot more because our extroverted perceiving. But people with dominant introverted perceiving, they're pretty much just staring right at you. So I don't know how to explain that really, because all that, once again, is still more abstract. But yeah, he sounds like he's in the same quadra for sure.
What about you, Jen? Do you feel like you speak the same language as Charles? Like,
Yeah. I see a lot of FI. I think the FI is masculine, so I think it could be a MF maybe, like feminine extrovert decided. That's what I'm seeing actually. But I'm definitely I think our types are very compatible, if you know what I mean. I don't know how to best describe it. Just sort of complements. I tend to get on well with lead masculine FIs, just and lead TIs as well. I just tend to get along with very well the IPs, just generally. I don't know, in terms of relating to kind of stuff he says. Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of NF from anecdotally, but I'm hearing a lot of NF from Charles, which is good. I mean, he's got that balanced SC and NI. I've heard him like just recently, like a couple of minutes ago, like doing that double observer thing. He just says some facts, then he brought out a concept. I was like, oh, that's pretty good the way he does that. Yeah,
cool.
So that's good.
Do you feel like I guess we're stopping right there. We'll wait till Jin's back.
I can hear you guys.
Okay. Okay. Do you feel like you're learning more about your own FI when you're talking to someone like Charles, or?
Yeah. Yeah, in a way. I'm not learning about my own FI. Just learn about his FI. Really, seeing how he likes stuff, how he just doesn't care, how what he likes is so true to him. Me being Demon FI, I know what he's feeling, but I don't do it the same way as him, where he just like does it on default, where it's absolutely his dominant function. I have a sort of admiration for that, because I can feel the same things he's feeling, but I don't, which I think is, because of it's both FI, I can feel the same things he's feeling, but I just don't like, for my own self, I can't put myself in a position where I talk like him about his FI, where he's, super, his FI is just super, it rules all the other functions, if you see what I mean.
And you can see that in him.
Yeah, from a few things, the way he talks, yeah, from a lot of the stuff he says, and when he says he likes stuff, it's pretty cool. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Cool. Do you see something similar in Jin, Charles? Like how his NI is ruling him, like that he's using it the way he's using it?
I don't know. It's hard to explain. I have to like analyze it.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Cool,
yeah.
man. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming out. Let's just promote what you guys have going on. Jin, you've got that YouTube channel. You have something else going on now, or is just that for now?
So at the moment, no, I primarily just have the YouTube channel. It's the N Chap. So the capital N, capital C, Chap,
We'll put a link.
HAP. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're doing other videos now, not just typing videos. You're
Predominantly class typing videos, but I'm also trying to just branch out and grab some of the more typical Myers and Briggs community to my channel.
Right.
Previously, I was just making general MBTI videos with a hint of objective personality thrown in, and people can debate and stuff, and which I'm sure
Nice.
People do all the time.
Yeah, best of success and luck with that, Jin. And Charles has bands going on. Do you have we'll put some links for your bands.
I think we're Benevolence Metal on YouTube, and we were also, I'm trying to remember the YouTube channel. Chris runs all that. But you can throw in our YouTube. You can also throw in our Facebook. And I guess if you want, you can throw in my channel. My channel's kind of boring, though. You can throw in my channel, but yeah, there's nothing exciting on there. You'll see it.
Check out my non-exciting channel. So we'll put those links in the description. Thanks, man. Thank you so much, guys. Have a good one.
Later, dude.